This is the Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kim Seltzer, a dating and makeover expert, where I will help you build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. The lack of, or minimal, I should say, in-person human contact during this time might be leaving you stressed out and lonely. We are all profoundly social creatures, obviously, and at the root of most of your desires is a need to belong, to be accepted, to connect with others, and most important, to be loved. So when it is difficult to see people in person, it contributes to social isolation, unfortunately. But as I've said before, and I've said this numerous times, social distancing does not mean to be socially disconnected. Social and romantic connectedness is just, they're all crucial for your emotional and physical well-being. And I argue that this could be a time where you become even more socially connected than ever before. Here's a new interesting study that actually backs up with what I am seeing with my clients who are thriving during this time. So if you tend to be shy, a little more left brain, you're more of an introvert, you have a hard time meeting and connecting with people, now is a time where you can feel even more connected. The most interesting fact about connection is that it's internal. Researchers agree that the benefits of connection are actually linked to your subjective sense of connection. In other words, if you feel connected to others on the inside, you will reap the benefits. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, this does not replace physical connection, and that's extremely important. And ultimately, we all want that. That's the goal. But while you may not be able to control seeing people in the physical world, one thing you can take responsibility for is the state of your mind. And in the same way, it is possible to feel connected in a group of strangers, talking to people on dating apps, and joining virtual groups. We can actually foster, create, nurture, and build our internal sense of connection, even when we don't always have that physical connection. It just takes a little courage, creativity. Oh, and yeah, a computer. And you've heard me talk before. I highly encourage video dates as part of virtual dating. It's a great way to build connections, opportunities, and get a feel for someone before meeting. And it can also keep things going. There's a guy that I'm working with right now who he's inherently shy, and he came to me, he's like, Kim, I never progressed on dates. It's really hard for me to approach women. I just overall am socially not that confident. And he really had a hard time asking women out. So we had been using video dates as part of his dating regimen to work on his approach, his conversation skills, his body language, his flirting techniques, all of it. And he started out actually practicing with his text exchanges, right? And then we moved into the phone conversation, and now he's getting really great at the video dates. In fact, he just told me that he is feeling more socially confident and connected than ever before, and has been able to actually progress with women. So it's exciting to see some of these changes. There are a lot of ways to stay connected during social distancing, but number one, it's important to learn the different ways to do so. And number two, cultivating the skills you need to use once you're on them. And that's where I come in. But I have someone with me today who's going to talk about the latest virtual trends on staying connected. It's going to be a really interesting conversation. He is a serial entrepreneur and public company CEO. The Meet Group started out as a single brand, which he grew to over $30 million in revenue before merging with a public company in $100 million deal. And since then, he has led the company to acquire 4 additional social apps. And in 2019, he forged a partnership with Match Group's Plenty of Fish to bring live streaming technology to their platform. He has won numerous awards, including Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year award for the Philadelphia region. He is also a children's book author and a mentor at Princeton University's Keller Center. He began his entrepreneurial journey in school, founding Essay Edge and Resume Edge from his Harvard dorm and sold it for millions of dollars at the age of 24. Oh my gosh. Geoff Cook, welcome. Are you there?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. It's so nice to have you on. It's a really kind of different conversation, especially for my audience, but I'm so interested. Obviously, you know a lot about technology and building businesses, but I wondered what your personal journey and attachment is that led you to your interest in technology and dating and social apps.
Yeah, so I guess the journey that got me to the current company was I had started a side job back at Harvard in '97 just to avoid having to work at a library. But that side job ended up
Yeah.
growing dramatically, and then ended up selling that to a company shortly after I graduated. And so at that time, I had been aware of, after that first merger, had been aware of social networking. I was, I was an very early Facebook user when Facebook was just at Harvard. It just struck me that social networking was going to be enormous and that there would be multiple winners, that there would be social networks, not just for people that you might want to know, but for people, or not just for people that you know, but for people that you might want to know. And so that's what really gave birth to the company. And then of course that eventually just starts to look like a dating network, but maybe one more focused on being like the mobile version of the bar or the coffee house, and less just about like finding a date for the weekend.
Right, right. It's so interesting. And I've seen the evolution just being in this business for so long of, using technology to connect. And you're right, like it's such a booming thing right now, but also I think it's just the way that people are using it too is different. Like, have you noticed a change in how people are dating just overall and using the technology?
Absolutely. So, we got into live streaming video in 2016,
Mhm.
and at the time, it was pretty early to get into live streaming, especially with respect to dating. But it's grown, quite a bit since then. But with this pandemic, really in March, we've seen like a 40 to 50% increase in total time spent in our video function, as well as increases in revenue. And so basically, people are, because they can't meet in person, they're looking for connection in other ways. And live streaming video is extremely rich because it's so much more than a profile. You actually get a sense of somebody's personality. It's just a medium
Mhm.
that really speaks to people at this particular time. And so, that has now become, the by far the most important aspect of our business.
Yeah. I wondered, and this is just like a personal question, like, did you ever use it when you were like dating early on? Like, have you actually used it yourself?
No. So, I married my high school sweetheart,
Aw.
essentially never dated him.
So you didn't have to go through all of that. The thing, and no, and it's such a different world now. And what I'm saying to a lot of people too is that what's kind of nice is that you have an opportunity to meet way more people than you did, back in our day when you just kind of had like, yeah, like either your school or your community. But with that, the challenges are then becoming like, how do you navigate it? Right. And so without it becoming, like what's next kind of, thing that happens with people. It's like, well, this person, I don't like the way they look. So next, but here's the thing I'm finding about the video streaming in particular is that it's allowing people to actually slow down, so that they are looking at body language, they are looking at first impressions and how to connect in a conversation in a video is way different than just swiping right and left.
Yeah, well, you know what? An example of this. So, we put out a lot of different types of video dating capabilities. We have a live streaming platform, and we basically create these mini games to allow everybody to be the star of their own dating show.
Oh,
And
cool.
we had one, and continue to have one called Next Date, which is, everybody can queue up for a particular to date, a particular streamer, and if both sides click the date button, then it's a match, and you can contact each other more afterwards. And meanwhile, there's an audience. Other people are actually watching this date in process. And what was interesting was, as soon as we found something on the order of like 20% of all people were a match. But when we added a little tweak where we allowed, instead of showing you who wanted to date you, we blur their screen for the first 50, 60 seconds and force you to basically have a conversation with someone without knowing what they look like. And only after you decide whether, and they get increasingly more visible, and only after you decide to date them are they revealed. That nearly doubled the amount of dates. So video allows you to not just focus on the very superficial, made up, profile photo that people have, curated and cultivated, and so much so that it probably doesn't even look like, you can't trust it looks like the person. Video allows you to kind of get a sense of a person's sense of humor, personality, connection. And so much so that then when you see them, you might find them more attractive than if you had just seen them first.
Yeah, see, and that's what a lot of people are worried about. They're like, oh, people aren't the same on camera than they are in person. But have you seen any statistics in the success rate of when people do a video date and then move on to like a real date, so to speak, like what the success rate is?
We don't have a good sense of that. That's a very good question. What we do see on our apps, like, we facilitate about one meeting every second. So we have somewhere around 15 million monthly users. And, based on our surveys, we believe that we have that many meetings. So like 80 plus thousand meetings, happening a day. Now, at the same time, that is prior to of course, the pandemic. And so right now, I think that the way people are using video is as a substitute for meeting in real life. But I think what is going to happen is that people are going to increasingly see video not as a substitute, as life opens up again, but as a filter, right?
Yes.
So you're not going to want to go talk to somebody at the bar or at the coffee house simply because you connected and you swiped the same way on each other. That's going to feel like a very shallow. You're going to want to have some more connection before that.
That is a really good point. And this is something that I'm finding fascinating, is I'm really an advocate for, video dates beforehand. And even before this pandemic happened, I always recommended it because it's allowing people to slow down and really get to know somebody without the shiny object effect. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, a lot of times when people were just going out on dates, what I was finding is they were distracted with what is real. And so they get dressed up, they go out, they have a lot of drinks, and then they're not really focused on, the conversation, the person that's in front of them. And so I feel like the video streaming allows you to almost not, distract yourself from what's real. And because of that, the emotional connections are building a lot stronger.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think a lot of people are taking this time to have a lot of these video connections, and I think when things are more open and people are actually meeting again, like there's just a reality that of course you could be disappointed by your video date, but you're much more likely to be disappointed by someone you haven't video chatted with, right? So
yeah,
it's not a question of either or. This is a question of probabilities, right? And so
exactly.
if you go back and forth in text-based chat and photo, you only have the most stilted possible, sense of who a person is. If you add video to that, well, now you've enriched it. And of course, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be disappointed. It just reduces the probability.
Right, you're going from 2D to 3D and then hopefully to real life. Although maybe in the future, maybe this will
Exactly.
be next on your list is like a hologram. Oh my god, can you imagine?
Yeah, yeah, like the Upload. I don't know if you watched that series.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally, I did. It's crazy, but I could almost see something like that. Well, beyond that though, it's fascinating. So I'm doing these virtual flirt workshops. And who knows, maybe we could do it with your app. It's been so interesting and awesome at the same time because, flirting is something that's really daunting for a lot of people. And what people are saying and they're finding is that when they practice it in the safety of their home, so to speak, with people on a screen, it's building their confidence. And so just even the mere fact of using video conferencing or dates as ways of practicing some of the skills that were lacking in the first place, that I also think it's a tool for that.
I think
Have
that's
you
right. I think the more people you interact with,
Yeah.
you just get more natural at being able to do
Yes.
it. And what's interesting about the speed dating, the reason we got the speed dating and the way that we do it, which is these little mini games, blind date and next date,
Mhm.
is we found that people, it is daunting, the ability to want to go on a video and talk to other people. That's something that like 1 or 2% of the audience might want to do at any given time.
Mhm.
But if you instead ask the question, well, how many people will want to watch those videos? That's something more like 30, 35%.
Oh yeah.
And so, we basically said, well, what if we made speed dating public? And what's interesting is then you get a sense, like if you're watching someone that you're interested in
Mhm.
interact with someone else, you get a sense of them from those other questions. And then you can jump in and if you want to take your shot or not. And so, it's really interesting to see kind of this public speed dating kind of really come into its own. But to your point, by having this public speed dating, you're getting many really quick interactions with other personalities that could help you in the real world.
Yeah, definitely. And, again, I always equate it to building muscle, right? It's like going to the gym and, what this is a tool so that you can start building muscles like your social muscle and connectedness so that you do feel even stronger than you did before when you are meeting people. And I'm seeing this like over and over again with my clients, and it's a really beautiful thing that you're helping people with, like technology. I think that's often, especially on shows like this, is overlooked as ways of like a tool for helping people, and I really believe that. Like, do you know, or is there any talk about what the future of live streaming and dating will be?
Well, it's a good question. We almost feel like, given how hot it is right now, that
Yeah.
when people can see each other more, like it'll probably come down a little bit at first, but probably still well above, where it had been prior to the pandemic. Because what's happened is that people have gotten more comfortable with this medium and putting themselves out there, and that's dramatically changed.
Hmm.
Um, and so, I think that, you know, I would expect that live streaming and dating, is just absolutely here to stay. I would say one thing that we're working on right now is this. So much has been about just adding video simply because people can't meet in real life.
Hmm.
Now, as society starts to open up, we are thinking more about what kind of ways can we do to blend video into the real world dating. And kind of an example of this later this summer, and assuming society continues to open, we're going to take these dating games that I mentioned, next date, blind date, and we're going to have probably a weekly event, could be a nightly event, but at least starting off with a weekly event where if you've dated, if you matched, basically two people click date on each other, tap date on each other, we'll actually buy you a drink. So we'll give you a gift
Oh.
card to Starbucks or any number of other outlets. You can go meet up and actually connect. And so we see, and that's getting to my point of like, this is a filter. Like,
Yeah.
why don't you, date, and before you just run and meet someone, why don't you actually talk to them first? And that will help you determine who you wanted to meet.
Well, what's good about that too is that like a lot of my clients and people that I work with, they don't know what to say or how to approach or start a conversation. And so having this gives them kind of a starting point and a tool at which they can, enter a conversation or approach somebody. It's kind of like going back to the old days where guys used to ask girls how to dance, like across the way. And so that this is where I think technology and the real world are meeting. And I think when used in the right way is a beautiful thing. But without coaching and direction, that could be hard. So I'm just saying there should be some kind of coaching with this too, because then people are just, after they like buy each other the drink or what have you, it's like, then what kind of thing.
Yeah. And I would say, other things that we're looking at is like other formats. Could you
Yeah.
do dating in a group video format? Like, can you do chats around like topics that might interest you and start meeting people around topics, but in a live streaming environment?
Yes, yes. It's giving people starting points and then seeing like, how they can progress in it. And I think with that gives a lot of people confidence. Have you heard of any challenges people are having around using it or things that like stop them?
Well, a lot of people, are stopped by simply the concept of putting themselves out there. Like
Yeah.
they've spent all this time curating their photo, picking the right ones, and like they don't know what to do. Like, and sometimes there'll be a mismatch where like for example, often the female will dress up for a live stream and then be disappointed when the male is like in sweats and a
Oh
t-shirt,
my God. Don't
right?
even
And
get me
so,
started.
you
Yeah.
know, so it's
Yeah.
like that first impression.
Mm-hmm.
Some people take very seriously, and other people interpret it as, well, you know what, this medium allows you to be more casual, right? And so sometimes you have a mismatch on kind of expectations there. If you think of it as a good first impression, like try to be reasonably presentable. The fact of the matter though is that it is more casual. So I wouldn't say you'd have to go put on something that you wear to a club, but look like you didn't just wake up.
Well, yeah, and I would even argue about that because being an image consultant, obviously this is the big thing of what I do with people is helping them with their first impressions and confidence. And there's a lot of research out there that says you will perform better, you will actually have a better date when you dress the part. Now, to your point, you only really have to dress from the waist up, so that is a good thing. You could have your sweatpants on. I've seen, like funny videos with guys in their underwear still like from the waist down, like at least it's just like a frame that you have to work with. But dressing up and practicing some of this stuff in ways of first impression on a video, I also see as a benefit of the video streaming, because I think there's some people who didn't care about how they looked or their first impressions, even, in the physical world, so to speak. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
no, I agree 100%. I agree 100% with that. It is always better to make a good first impression, and you will get more results. I guess my only point would be, you wouldn't, if that becomes a hardship and
Yeah.
you're now not doing it simply because you're wearing this or that dress or you think you have bad hair, that you miss 100% of the chances you take out.
Yes. And right. And there's a lot of fears, I think, around that sometimes, and an excuse like, oh, well, I don't have anything to wear, or forget it, or that guy, that's superficial, or that kind of thing. So again, it's like an opportunity to really look at some of this stuff and what can you do to get past it. And again, these kind of platforms that you're talking about are perfect tools to do that. So well, this has been super like interesting. It's definitely a different conversation, and I really feel like it should give people hope. I know that a lot of like the older generation, for instance, finds some of the stuff daunting. Are there any tips that you would have for the generation that's not growing up with technology so much, and how easy your platforms are to use?
Yeah, I mean it's very simple. It's literally as easy as pressing a button on your phone. And we see that the reaction among users is really good across the age spectrum. And so while it is true that a higher penetration of users 18 to 45 live stream, we do see it 45 plus as well, and often successfully.
I actually think it could help people with their confidence too. And it's like anything, like we were saying before, once you learn it and you practice it, I think most people will find that it'll build their confidence with it, just interacting and dating in this, virtual world. So, Geoff, thank you so much for your knowledge and coming on and sharing just like what we can all expect in the new world. And your platform sounds amazing. Can you let everybody know again just how to find it, access it, and any other things that you're working on?
Yeah, we have a number of different apps, all enabled with live streaming video. Meet Me, Meetme, is one of our biggest apps that's on iPhone and Android. We also have Tagged, Tagged. That's our African American community. And then we have a gay dating app with live video as well called Growler.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, Geoff, this has been such a pleasure and an honor to have you on. And again, thanks for joining me. This has been the Charisma Quotient, and I'm your host, of course, Kimmy Seltzer. Remember, you can build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. And make sure you go to my site, kimmyseltzer.com, Kimmy Seltzer. And if you're feeling disconnected and socially isolated and looking to know what to do and where to go from here, definitely click on the link you see in the show description for a free breakthrough call so I can help map it out. So, again, it's one thing to swipe, it's another to make a connection. And it all starts with a call. Stay tuned until next week with more tips on how to feel and look fabulous every day.